welcome back to another episode of Q and Egg, and our first one in the new studio.
I'm excited. Very cool.
And I'm here with Paul.
Hello.
And Steve. And I'm Jenny. And thank you for joining us today. We answer all of your questions sent to us at qandegg@gmail.com and also at qandegg on Twitter. Well, not all of your questions. We get a lot, but I try to answer some of them. And
from those at least 90%.
I do.
Right.
I actually sat and wrote back to about 40 people on Monday.
Ooh, wow.
So I do read almost every single one, unless it looks like spam.
That's very diligent.
Okay. So this first question comes from Ernie S. And he asks actually something I wonder about myself. He says, I found a guy trying to sell a Powercolor 7990 for $350. I wanted to get it but couldn't trust it. It seemed too good to be true for someone like me who couldn't afford a new one from any brand. And I actually did a little bit of research on this, and used ones of these on eBay go for right around $600. So that is a pretty substantial discount. Would any of you buy a used video card, and do you sell your old video card or any parts after you upgrade?
I was recommended when I was in college to never, ever, ever do that, and I understand the reasons why much more now. I mean, basically you could be easily ripped off by somebody online, or it could be broken. It could be a friend of yours that's trying to help you out, though, and that's probably more trustworthy. But I mean, from a total stranger and not knowing the condition of a product, I would not recommend buying used when you can usually buy something new and being guaranteed a warranty, which you don't get when you buy it, except for, I guess, in some cases. I know XFX had a double lifetime warranty where you could in fact transfer that lifetime warranty to the next receiver of that product. But aside from that, I'm not aware of any other way to transfer a lifetime warranty. So
yeah, I kind of on both sides of the fence on this one, because I have bought items used before that have worked just fine for long periods of time. So I would say, like, who's the guy who you're going to buy it from? Because if it's like a guy who you just met and he's like, hey, you want to buy this video card, then
in a trench coat.
Yeah, if you're talking about something like maybe eBay or something like that that has more buyer protections in place, so you know that if you get the product and it doesn't work right, that you do have some sort of recourse or some way to go back and return it, or that sort of thing, then I would lean a little bit more towards yes. I will say processors are something that I've bought used, and I know lots of people buy used, because processors are generally, if they work for a very long time. So that's something that's a possibility. And then as far as myself, and I don't know if I could speak for Steve or anyone else here, but when it comes to parts that I have that I've stopped using or that sort of thing, I sell them sometimes here and there, but most of the time I'll find other ways to use them, building a sort of a secondary system for a friend or that sort of thing. But I try to kind of take all those little components and integrate them and get them working for somewhere else, as long if they're still working just fine and everything. But, yeah.
What about sticks of RAM?
RAM's another thing where generally if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's amazing, isn't it? But yeah, RAM. I don't know.
It seems like it's more volatile. Like,
yeah,
for lack of a better word, it could be damaged easily.
Yeah, for anything like that, I would be willing to take the hit on the warranty possibility and that sort of thing if it was a good enough price, as long as I knew that as soon as I got that product, I could install it, test it, make sure it works fine, and then if it works, then I'm probably good, and if it doesn't work, I can return it or something like that.
As long as you knew you could return it, basically.
But you gotta have it out there, because if you get it and it's just like, this doesn't work at all, then you don't want to be out the $300 or whatever you spend.
Yeah. So I guess with used parts, it's due diligence, and also be a little bit choosy, ask the right questions.
And test it right away.
And test it right away, or have them test it in there, show them, like, test it in their system before you buy it, and watch the test, or do the test yourself on their system.
Yeah.
Okay, so from Luke H, he asks, I can see that your lives are focused around technology, but if there was no technology or electricity, what would you do at that time?
Steve?
Oh. Steve? Well, I used to live in New York, and there were hurricanes, and there were times where the power was completely out for long periods of time, like a week and a half, I think was the longest it had ever been out for. Oh, and yeah, so we're talking about like leaving and trying to find other places to charge our phones and stuff. But well, I'm married, and when you have a person you're married to that you love very much, and you're in a dark room with, and nothing else left to do but explore one another, you find a way to find excitement and joy in your life. But that's what I would do if we were in a post-apocalyptic situation.
What's
Talk about playing board games, you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah,
Jeez.
these tabletop games.
Why is Jenny laughing so much about board games? That doesn't seem
Giggling.
risque.
Do you need contraceptive for board games?
Jenny, would you? Yeah.
I would totally go the Rick Grimes route. I'd be like the vigilante collecting supplies, saving little kids, bringing
Sweet.
contraceptives to Steve,
That would be helpful, thank you.
raiding the drugstores. I've always had that kind of survivalist thing. I read Hatchet, a book by
very
Gary
nice.
Paulson when I was about 9 years old, and ever since then I've been hooked on the idea of like being able to survive in any situation. And like you, I've also been in major disasters, and you know what you're supposed to do. Fill up the bathtub, fill up the sinks, you know, that kind of a thing.
You know, in the post-apocalyptic future, I think really power is going to be determined by who controls the fuel supply. So I would gather a ragtag group of vigilantes. We would modify our vehicles with weapons and that sort of thing, and drive around the desert in search of the Thunderdome.
That would be a good idea. What you should do, though, is attach a keg to the back of your vehicle and fill that with fuel, and use that as a. That'd be really
Yeah,
good.
you
Yeah.
can drop that off and explode it.
So as a vigilante for hire, I would apply for your team.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
You should definitely add a dog to
We need a femme
dog.
fatale.
And a dog.
Yeah.
Alrighty. This one comes from one of our Twitter followers, Heisky00. He asks, or she asks, I'm not going to be gender biased here. Does getting another GeForce GTX 760 to SLI bring more performance than just buying a more expensive graphics card? So if you have two 760s in SLI, would that be better than just getting a 780 Ti or something?
So the assumption is they already have one 760 and they're contemplating buying a whole nother generation card or a whole nother card in general. I'd say if it's same generation, maybe another 760, but if we're talking like 2-3 generations later, it might be better off just to buy a whole nother card. You know, the 960, let's say, if that ever exists.
Yeah, I agree. For right now, since there's no 800 series that's out or anything like that, another 760 would probably be a good way to go. You will get more performance, and you can often get, like, with the cost you would pay for two 760s, you can often get more performance than an equivalent like 780 or 780 Ti even. The trade-off there is that you're going to be drawing more power, you're going to be generating more heat in the case, and you're not going to have SLI support for all games that you play. Although a lot of them are pretty good, especially AAA titles are pretty good with at least two-way support. So yeah, definitely a viable option. Just bear in mind some of those caveats.
Also, there are a lot of benchmarks out there for this type of thing. So you can definitely go online to some pretty reliable websites and look at the SLI of 760s versus maybe the card that you're looking to buy, and look at those numbers and make a decision. It's a pretty popular combination to put in SLI, so I think those numbers are probably pretty readily available, and you can make a pretty good decision based on that. And our question of the week, which entitles you to a gold star from us,
Katwa.
comes from our Twitter, as we're selecting question of the week from Twitter. And it comes from at 8BitPhoenix, which I like your handle, is really funny. He asks, what do you think would be the best use or implementation of virtual reality headsets and glasses? Like, with all the applications, our world, we tend to get kind of stuck on just using them for games. But I really like the idea of being able to attend lectures all over the world, or plays that I can't see, or live performances of music that I wouldn't otherwise be able to experience.
I had an idea a while ago, unless you wanted to go first, Paul.
Well, I was going to say I'm always about knowledge of self, so I could see a virtual reality implementation used in combination with, say, like exploratory surgery. So there'd be like, you know, one of those camera things going up inside you, and you'd be like controlling it and watching through the virtual reality headset at the same time.
I think of Inner Space, the way you're describing it. Like this little robot that has stereoscopic view, and you're just, you know, getting that.
I think I can actually, I need to file some patents for this sort of thing.
What did you do today, Paul? Well,
What?
I directed my own colonoscopy. So.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then you can
Uploading
make
it to
the
my
decision.
YouTube.
It's like I come to a junction. Do I go left or do I go right?
Clean colon.
My idea, just recently we were talking about this, and it was to use VR and like an Oculus Rift to virtually visit different like famous landmarks or locations, you know, like
I
the
like
Eiffel
that
Tower or the ISS would be amazing. Just to have that mounted outside, and you could just kind of like look around at whatever you wanted, first person, and maybe everybody else could watch it and only one person obviously would control it, and then just be in this really exceptionally long queue to wait your turn, but the whole time you're just watching what everybody else are doing.
What about like underwater
cool.
locations, like places
That'd be
we'll
phenomenal.
never be able to go?
Google Maps has.
None of us are rich submariners.
Google Maps, I believe, has the in Australia the Great Barrier Reef, right? So that's a really good example of it. And having that set up though live would be really cool.
Yeah.
So.
I've always wanted to visit the duodenum.
The duodenum.
What is that?
It's an organ.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm really stuck on my idea. Cool.
All right, well, I think that wraps up this episode of Q and Egg. Please join us again next week on Wednesday, and also tomorrow we have another episode of Yolk'd coming at you, as well as our live stream on Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. You'll find that at twitch.tv/Newegg or Newegg TV. Our redirect does work.
Nice.
Additionally, you can tweet to us at Q and Egg, and also write in to qandegg@gmail.com.
Thanks, guys.
Have anything to add?
I'm really appreciative for all of you guys coming and watching this video, and I think you're all fantastic.
Thank you, Paul. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.